so everybody can see him. And this is Tyton. And Tyton is a barn owl, not a bard, but a barn owl. They are endangered in Connecticut. This bird came from Utah in March. He was struck by a motor vehicle out in Utah, and it broke his coracoid, sort of like our collarbone. It was an old injury. It had already healed by the time somebody found him starving along the side of the road, and there was nothing they could do to repair that injury, unfortunately, so it left him a non-flighted bird. But he flew to us regardless via Delta Airlines and became part of our educational program. We don't know how old he is. Young adult. These birds in the wild, average lifespan is only 2 to 4 years. They don't live a long time. So we know he's a young adult. We know he's a male, due mostly to his size. In the raptor world, the majority of raptors, the female is larger than the male. And that is because a female lays the eggs, does the brooding and protects the young, and the smaller, more agile male goes off and does most of the hunting until those young can care for themselves and, thermoregulate, keep themselves warm and a little protected. In the barn owl world, though, the males are colored just a little bit differently from the females. They tend to have a blonder or whiter chest, where the females tend to have more freckles. It's said that the more freckles you have, the more attractive you are. So if I were a barn owl, I'd be good to go. Though these birds, like I said, they don't live a long time. They are a smaller raptor. They have a very high metabolism. They eat small amounts frequently, so they're preyed upon by other birds, and they could easily starve, especially when the weather drops, temperature drops, and they get cold. They can starve to death in a matter of a couple of days. So that's why this bird is not so long-lived. They are endangered in Connecticut. There's maybe 5 or 6 no nesting pairs of them here. This is an area of the state where I believe there is a nest, as there are down the shore, Stratford area, I believe. They've seen them in the Middletown area. They like big open spaces, farmlands. Connecticut doesn't have the farmlands and the big open spaces they used to have. There's pretty stiff competition with the barred owl. Like the barred owl, this bird prefers to nest in cavities, holes in trees, old buildings, hence the name barn owl, silos, barns. So all of that. Connecticut doesn't have as much of that for this bird anymore. And like I said, larger owls that would prey upon this bird, larger raptors, red-tailed hawks, great horned owls, barred owls can be very aggressive. So that's why we probably don't see as many of these birds in Connecticut as we used to. They aren't a bird that is particularly fond of the cold weather. Majority of our owls do not migrate. They're also feathered down to their talons. This bird is not. They are a migratory bird. They don't go too far though, not much beyond the borders of Texas, Mexico, and then back up into the warmer area for the spring. They also migrate, birds migrate to follow their food source. Those little kestrels, they are not migrating down to the Carolinas and beyond just because it's nicer than Connecticut. They're following bugs, they eat a lot of bugs. This bird eats a lot of rodents. It's said that a nesting pair of barn owls can eat as many as 1,000 rodents in a 3-month period of time. Pretty phenomenal. Another thing they do is very common for them to brood twice a year. Most of your owls brood once a year in the spring, late winter. They'll have one brood of 2 to 4, maybe 6 young if you're a saw-whet. This bird has been known to lay up to 16 eggs. Not all of them may hatch out, but not uncommon that they're raising 8 and 10 young. Not all survive, but because they are a short-lived bird, if they did not brood like that, they would probably be gone. Very important for these birds and other raptors that we control our use of rodenticide, that we watch what we put in the environment, because everything we put out there has a ripple effect, eventually coming back to haunt us. Rodenticide, it's so much easier to take that poison and just sprinkle it out there, walk away, now you don't have to worry about picking up that dead mouse. Yuck. Well, what happens? That mouse takes about 10 days to die. They usually seek out a water source. It's an anticoagulant, so they bleed internally. And it takes, like I said, about 10 days for them to die. Meanwhile, they're weak. They're easy for a bird like this to catch, easy prey. They eat one with that rodenticide in it. If it's a strong enough rodenticide, that one mouse will kill these birds. Birds don't have the clotting factors that you and I have to begin with. And now they've eaten an anticoagulant. Or they'll tear it up when they get back to the nest and they feed it to 2 or 3 of their young and now they're poisoned. Working as a vet tech, I'd see a dozen dogs a year come in poisoned. Sometimes it was too late, people don't realize. A friend's neighbor lost her dog because she put rodenticide in her garage. The dog went down to the pond behind their house to play. Well, that's where the mice went to get something to drink. The dog ate the mice. It was too late by the time they found out what was wrong with that dog. So rodenticides really have a ripple effect on our environment and who lives in it. So for the environment's sake, for our raptors' sake, please use a good old-fashioned snap trap.